Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Tonight, I am joined by the Special Advisor to the Senate President on Media and Publicity, Honorable Eyiboh, for discussion on Nigeria's Senate's development agenda. Honorable Eyiboh is also a former spokesperson of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable.
Thank you very much for having me tonight.
Right. So by tomorrow, Tuesday, September 26, the Senate will resume the real business of legislation and lawmaking. So what should we expect from the upper legislative chamber?
The Senate, the 10th Senate, under the leadership of Senator Godswill Akpabio, had already demonstrated and signed a covenant with Nigerian people on the 13th of June 2023, when the 10th Senate was inaugurated. The covenant is very clear. The covenant is the Nigerian people had invested a trust upon the senators in the 10th Senate. And the senators, in turn, have promised to take that investment and give a return, a positive return on that investment by scaling up those things that will be able to jumpstart economic development, social mobilization, and of course, sustainable development goals. And that they started doing that, and evidently it was demonstrated during the screening of the ministerial nominees, during the intervention on the tariff of the proposal for the increase by 40% of electricity tariff. It was demonstrated during the Nigerian resident doctors' strike, protest or strike. You know, it was demonstrated at various moments. So this resumption is a resumption of to continue the covenant with Nigerian people. And you must be aware, and I must say this for the 18th, that the present 10th Senate is having as a core objective the issue of Nigerian people. So they are driven by the consciousness of returning power back to Nigerian people by creating opportunities and jumpstarting, possibilities that will make this country great again for the Nigerian people. And that journey, the second milestone of that journey, commences tomorrow. And there is no diversionary tendencies. There is no potential to disrupt that. Everything is peaceful, harmonious, and the Senate is ready, willing, and with capacity to go from tomorrow.
So what would you describe as the key achievements of the Senate before their recess?
Can you say that again?
What would you consider as the key achievements of the Senate before their recess? Considering all of these you've mentioned, what would you describe as the key achievements of the Senate before their recess?
Okay. I don't need you and I'm sure we don't need a prophecy to let us be aware of what took place. Now, first and foremost, the Senate exhibited a high level of national consciousness through the sacrifice by the extension of the sitting from the regular time, from the regular legislative days to irregular time. Sometimes they will end by 11 p.m., sometimes they will do it on Saturday and Monday, which are not legislative days, including Fridays. That, of course, may not mean anything to you. But the output of that sacrifice in terms of the extension of time and the legislative days counted so much. They will be able to have a lot of mileage. Within that, still within that period, they weren't up to 100, the additional 100 days in office. They were able to intervene at their intervention on several instances, like when the Nigerian resident doctors wanting to go on protest, indeed they went on strike. It was the intervention of the leadership of the Senate that brought about a peace in that direction. You could imagine, you can also recall that even in Nigerian Labour Congress, the Senate also intervened. At some point, when there was an engagement, the issue of a coup in Niger Republic, of course, the Senate first came up to the table on the issue of the exhausting diplomatic channels and constructive engagement instead of deployment of troops or any military action. That, of course, has gone a long way and to show that sensitivity to the Nigerian people, because you and I know too that there are some states in this country and some Nigerian people, of course, who are living in the border communities with Niger Republic. And of course, you are aware of the insecurity in the Sahel, and that the issue of our national security would have also been threatened if we had gone into a military engagement. So some of those interventions within that short period of time, of course, there were so many of such things. This is the first time a Senate has been able to sit together and galvanize even the traditional rulers in this country, coming together to ask them to buy into jumpstarting a national consciousness in a democratic process. So this and a whole lot, could form part of the what I could say the prospectus of a people's Senate, a people-driven Senate.
All right. So over the weekend, there was a 2-day retreat for NAS leadership, that is the principal officers of both the Senate and the National Assembly. What's the aim of that retreat?
Well, it wasn't like any other retreat, but it was a very critical retreat. A retreat intended to share knowledge, intended to share experiences, intended to galvanize capacities, intended to increase productivity, and of course a retreat that helped to galvanize, the essential, the foundational issues of our development. And of course, the issue of the executive legislative engagement has always been an issue of mistrust and poor perception. And also the issue of buying into letting Nigerian people understand the extent of the performance of the legislative houses. Because you know that the legislative houses have suffered series of poor public perception over time and have been performing so much without the ability to inform as much as they perform. So that culminated into several cases of poor performance. So they went in. The retreat also provided a strategy, methodologies, and of course innovations on how to manage welter of these forces that contribute in diminishing the integrity and productivity of the legislative houses. And this was done. And you had the former Senate presidents, Senator Ken Namani, Senator Pius Anyim, Senator David Mark, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, who is currently the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila. They were all there to share the experiences, to also be able to stay from the other side and act as a mirror, to the current leadership. In all, that retreat, you could look at it as an envelope that has in its content the prospectus of what the leadership of the House and the leadership of the Senate intend to do, with the prospect of that investment, return of that investment on the Nigerian people's gesture.
Right. But former President of the Senate, David Mark, faulted the high numbers of standing committee recently created by both chambers. I mean, for him, it says this will encourage legislative inefficiency. So looking at it, 8 special committees, 63 standing committees in the Senate, 7 special committees, 74 standing committees in the House of Reps. What was the reaction of the leadership of the National Assembly to that?
Can you repeat that or recount it again so that we hear you well?
Right. At that retreat, former President of the Senate, David Mark, faulted the high numbers of standing committees recently created by both chambers. And for him, he says this will encourage legislative inefficiency. So I'm looking at the numbers, truly, 8 special committees, 63 special committees in the Senate. For the House of Reps, 7 special committees, 74 standing committees in the House of Reps. So I'm asking, what was the reaction of the leadership of the National Assembly to that?
Well, I am not a spokesperson either for the Senate or a House of Representatives, but from my legislative experience and the understanding of how it works, like any other management institution or any other special purpose vehicle, as it were, it is not the number, but the capacity of the persons in that responsibility to be able to drive their respective committees. You could have It's like issue of when people were criticizing that we are having almost 50 ministers, that we're supposed to have 10, we're supposed to have 20, and all of that. The injury that will be caused to you as an institution when it comes to your core mandate to have 10 committees or 20 committees, you may, if these people lack the capacity, if these people lack the experience, if these people are deficit of pedigree, they will sit on those 20 committees and cause so much damage and losses in such a way and manner that it will take you to the next election cycle that you will not be able to redeem it. But if you also split it into so many numbers, I am not an advocate of more numbers of committees or less number of committees, but I am an advocate of capacity. So if you have 50 committees, then you have, you are able to put up 50 committees because of the excess capacity that you have among your members, either senators or members of the House of Representatives. There's nothing wrong with that. What we are after is the result. The result must be commensurate with your core mandate. The result must be productive with the covenants you sign with the people. Your result must be such that we'll be able to elevate the issue of governance and enhance the capacity of our productivity in this case. So it's not the number of committees, whether more or less, but it is the capacity and the management of that capacity. Because in this country, we have all suffered and we have all seen the consequences of poor leadership recruitment culture. A culture where you take wrong people to put in right places, or where you take the right people to put in wrong places. So irrespective of the number of committees, irrespective of committees that you put the right person in a wrong committee, you will never get the result. So I want to applaud the Senate particularly for the ability to be able to talent hunt, to be able to see the pedigree and experience of most of its members. Of course, you and I know the present Senate, as is constituted, is highly populated by very experienced people, people who have capacity, people who understand the difference between politics and governance. And because of who they are and that experience, you can rationalize the effectiveness of their presence in various committees. And that's why there's prevalence of peace, harmony, and unity in the Senate post-committee constitution.
Right, so Honorable, how has the Senate President been steering the ship so far?
Well, the Senate President, the President of the Nigerian Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is neither new to politics nor governance. I'm talking about politics of rationalization and politics of raising and uplifting the people. Akpabio is a development leader. He's a man who is gifted in foresighting. He's a man whose insight on his aspirations usually culminate into a big foresight in his visions. He has been a commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. He has been a pathfinder in several executive policies in Akwa Ibom State. When he was a governor of Akwa Ibom State, there were words. I mean, we couldn't have words to describe him. He was said to be uncommon. And he still bear that imprimatur till death. And now, as a minister, the history is known to all of us. It's on the table. As a minority leader, he didn't do less. So now that he's a Senate President, he has said that he's a first among equals. What he means, therefore, is that every senator will receive his due in terms of respect, in terms of recognition, in terms of participation, in terms of partnership. He has said in his, when it was opening, he said, people first. And he has demonstrated that even in the committee, some of the major committees in the Senate, he has given it to even people who did not support him. And he's also able to rationalize that with those who supported him. So when the foundational issue of harmony, peace, and transparency is very key to the success of any leader. Godswill has been able to, sorry to call him that, but the President of the Senate has been able to defeat all the theories of conspiracies because he understands the origin and he understands the corridor of conspiracies. So he has decided to take the other corridor, which is very transparent, which is very open, a corridor that everybody will always travel and pass. So that is why he's enjoying. So with the enjoyment of this level of harmony he is having in the Senate, I can tell you clearly, without any ambiguity, that this Senate is and will continue to be the most peaceful, the most productive, the most synergized, the most collaborative, and the most result-driven. I can give you that. Within 100 days in office, he has been able to put the imprimatur of what the 10th Senate will look like after 4 years. And I want to tell you that all what he's doing now, he's going around having the buy-in from Nigerian people who are the owners of the mandate. To have a buy-in, to cooperate with government. He has been begging in every ceremony he goes that the Nigerian people should give this government the benefit of the doubt. And they are collaborating very well with the executive. Mr. President is leading us in the right way from the retreat. He has clearly stated that the Nigerian president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is getting us out of the troubled waters. And that cannot be done without the collaboration of the Nigerian Senate. And of course, the executives are also, the judiciary are also ready to lend their hands. So what I'm saying is that the present federal government of Nigeria, made up of the three arms of government, are actually a provision of the divine providence, the intervention of the providence, I meant to say.
Right, but why do you think some Nigerians are so convinced that this particular Senate will be a mere rubber stamp?
I think we have gone past that perception. If it were to be a near rubber stamp, by the time the executive sent in 48 names for ministerial screening, they would have returned the 48 names, garbage in, garbage out. But they took that time to screen it diligently. They went through all the checks and all of that, protests and petitions, all of that. 3 were dropped. So that could not be said to be rubber stamp. If they were rubber stamp, the electricity companies would not have made a proposal through the National Electricity Regulatory Commission (NEC) to increase electricity tariff by 40%. People stood up, the Senate stood up to say, no, the Nigerians should be allowed to breathe. We cannot allow Nigerians to suffer after the withdrawal of the fuel subsidy. In my mind, and I think to your mind, you will conclude that that rejection could not have been done by a rubber stamp Senate. And if for whatever you care, if it were a rubber stamp Senate, when the proposal for a military action, a request, or for a military action was put forward, or mobilization for a standby military, and the Senate said no, let's try the first option of diplomatic engagement. That constructive imagination on the part of the Senate, having in mind the sensibility of the Nigerian people, cannot be a product of a rubber stamp. So whoever now says that this particular Senate is a rubber stamp Senate, after within not even up to 100 days, going through that process and do all what I have said here, which nobody can controvert, then you come out with something and give me from a different dictionary the meaning of rubber stamp. But if all that are activities which is proven beyond reasonable doubt, no person will come up to say there is rubber stamp. And if you are saying so, you are just singing a swan song of rumor peddlers.
So how will you react to claims of impeachment plot against the Senate president?
React to what?
How will you react to claims of impeachment plot against the Senate president?
Well, impeachment is an English language intended either to color a falsehood or to promote rumor or to hide behind it to be able to show an identity, which of course doesn't make sense. It takes to impeach a Senate president, you need 2/3. So for 109 senators, you need 73 senators to remove the Senate president. That's number one. I'm not saying it's impossible. But number two, no member of the Senate, as we speak, has been bold enough to go around to take signatures or has been able to come out, as I'm talking boldly now, for on behalf that there is any wrongdoing by the Senate, either the president of the Senate or its leadership. So what I'm saying is that it has always been a tradition for the issue of banana peel to be planted in a legislature, House of Reps or Senate. Now, this banana peel, the present Senate removed the banana, they uprooted the banana from the Senate. So when the banana tree itself is uprooted, where would the peel come from? The banana usually comes from the issue of the distribution of committees, the issue of misappropriation, the issue of lack of transparency, the issue of treating others harshly, the issue of the lack of generosity in relationship with members. But none of those things is taking place. The day banana tree was removed from the Senate was the day of the election of the president of the Senate. 64 against 46. It was closely so. This is the first time that the political party, the presidency, or whoever could not influence the collective chorus of I. The people came out, those who aspired, those who were ready, those who were determined with their team. They came to contest. It was the most transparent in our annals. And that transparency was a function of the capacity of the contestants to be able to serve themselves, exhibit knowledge of governance, and of course, the senators were very transparent. So after that election, people came out, including the contestant who lost, came out to say it was a transparent election, there was a winner and there was a loser. So that atmosphere of conceding defeat, and the man who won said there is no victor, no vanquish. I am just first among equals. What can be more humbling than that level of activities by those against and those for? And for somebody to now begin to, not up to 100 days, to now begin to speculate on a rumor that has a garment of political gangsters, or that has a possibility of wearing the garment of political commercial politicians. So that does not exist. No senator, I want to tell you, no senator is contemplating on any issue like that. The gentlemen, all the senators have enjoyed their holidays. They have been able to have a swell time with their constituents, with their families. All of them are very proactive. All the senators, irrespective of political party, they have all come together, getting ready to start tomorrow on a good note. Like I told you before, this particular Senate, the 10th Senate, is populated by people with high level of pedigree, people who have a history and a place of history in the annals of this country, people who are ready and willing to take advantage of the position they are today to make sure that they form the biography of their time and age. So impeachment is not in the lexicon, any of these gentlemen. So whoever is telling you that is in the black corridor. It needs light to see the road.
All right, so one more issue to clarify. I mean, you've called it a rumor, but then a senator has accused the Senate president of setting the president against the North. Is there any substance in this accusation?
Well, from the way your voice is sounding, it's clear to me that you do not even believe that rumor. From the way your voice is sounding. Because what is the basis
in this accusation?
Why is a Senate as harmonious as they are working, as united as they are? Why would somebody want to go and set up the president against the senators? What's the reason? It doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't achieve anything. You and I know that such is a delinquent propaganda. Is a delinquent propaganda. That cannot see the light of today. An average Nigerian is no longer interested to listen to this kind of... Where we are now, we are in the province of transforming this country into a greater place in our history. The province of this transformation will have to go through a strong legislative a strong legislative agenda, a strong collaboration with other arms of government, the jurisprudence of democracy in the Senate has been developed to a point whereby the image of the Senate cannot be dragged by anybody because it is on autopilot. Because of the transparency of the leadership, the image of the Senate particularly is on autopilot. So why do you stand on the ground now trying to run a commentary, that has no effect on a democracy that has already been rooted by the force of Section 4 sub 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? The legislative, the National Assembly is empowered with its legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is not a power that you can allow disunity, you can allow disharmony, you can have rumor and tab brushing to come and dominate. What the Senate is having as we speak, I ask you to use the instinct of journalism, to use the instinct of investigation to go and find out. You will come back to thank me for letting you realize that, because it has never been common. This is the first time that jurisprudence has been introduced into the expansion of democratic and legislative duties in the Nigerian legislature. I can tell you that for free.